My stepdaughter tried to destroy my life and chose her real mom, who traded her for $5,000. Now she's calling me crying because her life turned upside down? I married Rick when Olivia was 3 years old. Her birth mother, Denise, was this disaster of a person who disappeared for months at a time and only showed up when she needed money. She'd been arrested twice for theft and once for assault. When Olivia was 4, Denise signed away her parental rights in exchange for Rick not pursuing back child support. We agreed never to tell Olivia about Denise because why would you tell a child their mother traded them for $5,000? So I raised her. I was at every soccer game, every piano recital, every parent-teacher conference. I taught her to ride a bike in our driveway. I held her when she cried about mean girls at school. I paid for her braces with my inheritance money. She called me mom and I called her my daughter. When people said she looked nothing like me, I'd laugh and say she got her dad's genes. For 13 years, that was our life. Then last month, Denise shows up. Olivia's 16 now, and Denise somehow found her on Instagram. Starts messaging her about how she's her real mother and I stole her away. Tells her all these lies about how Rick and I prevented them from being together. Olivia confronts us at dinner one night, holding her phone with all these messages. Rick tries to explain, but Olivia's already decided we're the villains. She starts meeting Denise secretly. Olivia starts calling me Laura instead of mom. She tells her friends I'm her stepmother who's been lying to her. She moves all her photos of us off her wall. But here's where it gets interesting. Denise doesn't just want a relationship with Olivia. She wants Rick back, and she starts using Olivia to get to him. Has Olivia leave her phone around with messages visible? Has her talks about how lonely her real mom is? How Denise never got over losing her family? Olivia starts picking fights between Rick and me. Dad, Laura's trying to control me again. Dad, Laura said I can't see my real mom. Dad, don't you think it's weird how Laura pretends I'm hers? Rick starts defending Denise. Says maybe we were too harsh. Maybe Olivia deserves to know her real mother. Maybe Denise has changed. I'm watching my family fall apart and then I find them. Rick and Denise, in his car in our driveway. He's kissing her. I stand there watching them through the kitchen window and something in me just goes cold. I did not confront them. I go upstairs and start making lists. The house is in my name. I bought it before we married with money from selling my dad's business. Rick's name isn't on the deed. His car? I paid cash for it but put it in his name for insurance reasons. The vacation house we go to every summer? Mine. Inherited from my grandmother. Olivia's college fund? That's interesting. It's in my name as the account owner. Rick and I had been putting money in, but I'd been adding extra from my consulting work. About $80,000 extra. Olivia's car she got for her 16th birthday 2 months ago? I bought that. Title's in my name until she turns 18. The credit cards Rick uses? All authorized user cards on my accounts. The next morning I call my lawyer. Then I call my accountant. Then I call a locksmith. Rick's at work when the locks get changed. Olivia's at school when I clean out her college fund and put it in a new account. I leave the original $20,000 Rick contributed, but take every penny I put in. I canceled Rick's cards and removed him as an authorized user on all of them. I texted him that he needs to find somewhere else to stay tonight. He calls me, screaming about how I can't lock him out of his own house. I remind him it's not his house. Never was. Olivia comes home from school and tries her key. It doesn't work. She calls Rick crying, and he tells her to go to Denise's apartment. That's when she learns Denise lives in a studio above a liquor store with no heat and roaches everywhere. She texts me, "You can't keep me from my home." I text back, "Your dad can find you somewhere to live. I'm sure your real mom has room." Rick tries to withdraw money from what he thought was our joint account. It's empty. I moved everything to my personal account. He calls me, screaming that I can't take his money. I remind him that every deposit came from my consulting firm. Olivia tries to drive her car to school the next week. The repo company already took it. She calls me sobbing, saying I stole her car. I tell her the car was never hers. It was mine that I let her use. Now she can ask her real mom for rides. I tell her, "You wanted your real mom. Now you have her. Enjoy everything she can provide for you." 3 weeks later, Rick tried to claim common law marriage. His lawyer called on a Tuesday morning while I was making coffee. The guy introduced himself as Charlie Larson and started talking fast about how Rick had rights to marital property and common law marriage, and how I couldn't just lock him out. I listened to him go on for maybe 2 minutes. Then I gave him Faith's phone number and hung up while he was mid-sentence. My coffee was still hot when my phone rang again. Faith was laughing so hard I thought she might be crying. She kept trying to talk but couldn't get words out, just these gasping sounds between laughs. Finally, she managed to tell me that common law marriage hasn't been a thing in our state since 1991. Even if it was still legal, Rick would have to prove we presented ourselves as married to other people, which was impossible since we actually got legally married 13 years ago. The whole claim was so stupid, Faith couldn't believe a lawyer actually suggested it. She said Charlie must be desperate for billable hours, or Rick lied to him about our situation. I didn't really care which one it was. I went to work and buried myself in spreadsheets for a healthcare client who needed their billing system completely rebuilt. Numbers made sense in a way people didn't anymore. Jeremy noticed I was staying until 9 or 10 every night. He'd bring me coffee around 7 and take over the smaller client accounts without me asking. He never said anything about it, just handled things so I could focus on the big project. My phone buzzed one afternoon with a text from a number I didn't recognize at first. Then I saw the message was from Olivia asking if I could bring her winter clothes because Denise's apartment was freezing, and she only grabbed summer stuff when she left. I read it twice, took a screenshot, and sent it to Faith with a note about documenting Olivia's living conditions. Then I blocked the number. Faith sent Rick's lawyer a formal response the next week. She told me it was 15 pages of case law and statutes explaining exactly why Rick had no claim to anything I owned. She included a complete list of every asset in my name with documentation showing I bought or inherited each one before the marriage, or with my own money during the marriage. The only thing Rick could legally claim was his personal stuff and the car I stupidly put in his name for insurance reasons. Faith said Charlie would probably tell Rick to drop it and focus on the actual divorce instead of wasting time on claims that would get laughed out of court. 2 weeks after I changed the locks, Rick showed up at my office. Security called me from the lobby saying a man named Rick Winters was asking to see me and should they send him up. I walked to my window and looked down at the parking lot. I could see Rick standing by his car, the one I paid for. He looked terrible. His face had stubble like he hadn't shaved in days. His shirt was wrinkled, and even from 5 floors up I could see something desperate in how he stood there looking up at the building. I told security to escort him off the property, and watched them walk him back to his car. He got in and sat there for a few minutes before driving away. I met with Faith at her office that afternoon. She had divorce papers ready and said I should file first instead of waiting for Rick to make a move. Filing first meant I controlled the narrative and the timeline. I signed everything she put in front of me. My hand didn't shake at all. Faith filed the papers the next morning and had Rick served at the motel where he'd been staying since I locked him out. She sent me a photo of the signed service receipt. Elena Patton called my cell phone 3 days later. She was Olivia's school counselor, and my number was still listed as the primary emergency contact. She told me Olivia had missed 4 days of school in the past 2 weeks. When Olivia did show up, she seemed tired and distracted, not like herself at all. Elena sounded worried and wanted to know if everything was okay at home. I told Elena that Olivia chose to live with her birth mother, Denise, and I wasn't her guardian anymore. I gave Elena Denise's contact information and address. Elena got quiet for a second, then asked if I was sure about this. I said I was completely sure and ended the call. I went back to my spreadsheets but couldn't focus. Jeremy knocked on my office door an hour later. I was on a video call with the healthcare client and I snapped at them about something small, some detail in their data that didn't match up. The client looked surprised, and Jeremy stepped in smoothly, saying we'd follow up with a detailed report tomorrow. After the call ended, Jeremy sat down across from my desk and asked what was going on. I gave him the basic facts without any emotion in my voice. My husband cheated with his ex. My stepdaughter picked the other woman over me. I kicked them both out of my house. Jeremy nodded and said I could take time off if I needed it, and I told him I didn't need time off. I needed to work. I signed up 2 new clients that week, both big healthcare companies that needed help with their data systems. Jeremy looked surprised when I told him I wanted both accounts, but he just nodded and sent me the files. I worked until midnight every night that week building out a business expansion plan that would need 3 new hires and a bigger office space. The numbers filled my head and kept me from thinking about other things, like how Olivia used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movies on Friday nights. Faith called me on Thursday morning while I was reviewing budget projections. She told me Rick's lawyer was pushing hard for spousal support, claiming Rick had been a stay-at-home dad for part of the marriage and deserved compensation. I pulled up my files and reminded Faith that Rick worked full-time at the insurance company for the last 8 years making decent money. Any support claim would be tiny and temporary at best, maybe a few months of minimal payments. Faith agreed and said she'd shut that argument down fast. The next day I got an email from Rick